Since 1986, the Legends of Zelda series has been gracing the screens of millions, immersing many into intricate worlds with mysterious dungeons, unsettling-looking enemies, and moments of epic heroism that made each and every player feel just a little bit more brave. Each of these Zelda games has obviously had their own respective hero to play as, Link, and each of these Links has had their own subsequent title. From the Ocarina of Time and Majora's Mask games, we have the Hero of Time. From the Legend of Zelda Twilight Princess, we have the Hero of Twilight, and from the most recent games, Breath of the Wild and Tears of the Kingdom, hails as the Hero of Hyrule. But that leaves me to ask, what's next? Will the Hero of Hyrule make a return for the next Zelda game, because, let's be real, of course there's going to be another Zelda game? Or will a new hero be taking up the mantle and continuing the ever-expanding Zelda timeline? Either way, I don't really care, because that's not what I want to talk about today. What I want to talk about today is the future of the Zelda franchise, and how it is my belief that eventually Nintendo will make a Link that will have to rely on or glean from all of its previous predecessors, essentially becoming the Hero of the Multiverse. So what would a Hero of the Multiverse potentially look like? Would they be completely overpowered? What would their equipment set look like? And is there any potential enemy from the Zelda franchise that would have any hopes in defeating this hero? Well, first, let's start by looking at the various games, the amount of items they have, and see what would be most beneficial for our hero. Since there are many Zelda games with a varying amount of items, I think the most fair thing to do would be to take no more than 2 items from each game, or group of games, which I will get into later. Over the various games throughout the franchise, we see a wide array of items that our heroes carry. For example, in Ocarina of Time, Link has access to close to 30 different items to help him out throughout his journey. Granted, some items are more useful than others, but the fact remains that Ocarina of Time Link has a decent variety of items to work with. Compare that to the hero of Spirit Tracks, who only has 11 items at his disposal. With all this in mind, what would our Hero of the Multiverse be able to take from each of these series if he were to do so? And after doing so, would he then be the strongest Link of them all? Let's find out. I wanted to break these games into some sections so as to save on time. I'm going to be grouping some of these games together as we talk about them. We're going to be taking roughly 2 items from each game or group of games, and our hero will end up with around 30 plus items. Starting off the franchise, we have The Legends of Zelda and Zelda 2, The Adventure of Link. These games start us off in the Fallen Hero timeline, where we see that Hyrule is not only overrun with monsters, but people just are scared in general. Ganon has taken over the land and there is little hope for the masses. However, this version of Link has access to something that most don't, and that's extremely strong magic. Now obviously there are other Links within the franchise that have access to magic, such as Link from Ocarina of Time, but Zelda 1 and Zelda 2 is going to see our hero starting off with some really powerful items in our corner. From Zelda 1, our hero will be taking the Red Ring and the Magic Rod. And from Zelda 2, we'll be taking the Magical Key and the Thunder Spell. These items offer immense magical power and make it to where Link effectively doesn't need to worry about much on his journey. The Red Ring reduces damage taken, and the Magical Rod can deal damage to enemies far away, effectively ending the threat of losing if Link's heart count gets too low. The Magical Key is really just an item of convenience, but who hasn't played a Zelda game and gotten tired of running around looking for all the keys in a dungeon? A skeleton key that unlocks everything just seems like a no-brainer for a game like this. Lastly, we have Thunder. Think of Sasuke's Raikiri from Naruto. As you can imagine, it's exactly what it sounds like. Using a great deal of magic, Link summons down multiple bolts of lightning to defeat most of his enemies or stun larger ones that can't be inherently beaten by the spell. Following next in line are the Link to the Past games and Link's Awakening. Link to the Past has some really interesting items that are going to follow a theme in this video of giving Link a lot of movement and invulnerability options. In Link to the Past, our hero will be picking up the Cane of Birna and the Magic Cape. The first item is a magical cane that gives Link a lot of robustness by creating a force field around Link that not only makes him invulnerable to damage, but damages enemies that come in contact with it. The Magic Cape, another item that rapidly drains Link's magic pool, also makes Link immune to damage while worn, but also has the added bonus of making Link invisible. Link's Awakening sees our hero becoming quite fashionable as well, as we're picking up both red mail and blue mail. With a fashion sense similar to the Hero of Time, the red mail will raise our hero's attack, making enemies easier to defeat, and the blue mail boosts Link's defense enough to essentially double his health. Speaking of the Hero of Time, Ocarina of Time is also quite fashionable, as we're picking up the Zora armor here, which will allow our hero to not have to worry about breathing while underwater. The other item Link is going to be picking up in Ocarina of Time is kinda niche in my opinion, but it's the Bomb Chew. We haven't had these little guys for a while now, but Bomb Chews allow Link to blow up things from a good distance. Plus, who doesn't love Bomb Chew bowling? Further down the timeline to Majora's Mask, our hero is officially picking up not only our strongest sword, but potentially our strongest item overall, the Great Fairy Sword. The Great Fairy Sword is described as a sword blessed by the Great Fairy, rumored to be able to reflect any and all dark magic. Merely holding it fills the wielder with strength, but unfortunately, its protective power did not survive intact in this world, and it is no longer able to resist enemy attacks. Coupling with the almighty Fairy Sword, our hero will be grabbing the Fierce Deity Mask as well. Just like in Majora's Mask, I think it would only be appropriate for our hero to be able to use this mask during boss fights, but donning this mask would make our already powerful hero have the Zelda franchise version of a Super Saiyan transformation. Now moving on to the first Zelda games that I personally owned and played, Legends of Zelda: Oracle of Ages and Seasons. Now, I don't remember everything about these games because I was like 5 when I had them, and I also never beat them because I had too smooth of a brain at the time. But if there's any one thing that I do remember from that game, it's the Seed Shooter. Like the name suggests, it's an item that allows the Link to shoot various types of seeds at the enemy. So from these games, which will be linked together, I think it would not only be appropriate to give him the Seed Shooter, which acts like a blow dart, and the Gale Seed. Now what's the Gale Seed, you may be asking? It's a special seed that, if used on himself, Link will immediately be warped to the nearest tree that grows these mystic seeds, and if it's used on an enemy, it'll just blow them away to a different part of the map, and effectively making the fight not your problem. After picking up some gardening items, Link finds himself in the world of Four Swords, where we'll be picking up a staple for the Zelda series, and potentially one of the most broken weapons in the entire video. Firstly, we're grabbing a slingshot. Obviously there's a bow that can be picked up as well, but the slingshot offers the potential to use a different type of ammunition, such as the Deku Nuts, and if coupled with the Gale Seeds, could give Link different options to use them if the Seed Shooter isn't available for whatever reason. And now onto our hero's potential best weapon. Mentioned previous, our hero grabbed the Great Fairy Sword, which has the highest damage output across all the games. However, the Four Sword from the Legends of Zelda: Four Swords is truly special. It's a special blade that not only has the ability to push back the forces of evil, much like the Master Sword, but has the obvious broken ability to split our hero into 4 individual heroes. Now equipped with the Four Sword, our hero can easily take out just about any enemy, and we no longer have to have a need for Zelda watch our back and shoot light arrows from a distance during key moments against the final boss, because our hero can just watch his own back in literally the best way possible. Now, moving on to my personal favorite of the games, this game is going to give our hero a few items that may not be broken, but will offer versatility depending on where he finds himself. The Iron Boots allow us to stick to the bottom of a lake bed, ocean, or stick to magnetic areas. The Skull Hammer not only allows us to hit switches that the sword doesn't normally allow us to do, but it also allows us to beat away our enemies in a very comical manner. It may not be a necessary item, but it's definitely fun to have. Minish Cap, a game with a large variety of items, gives us the option to pick up some items similar to A Link to the Past. The Cane of Pachi is a very unique item that simply just fills a hole with energy that becomes elastic, allowing Link to bounce on it like a trampoline and jump high into the air. Couple that with the Rocks Cape that we're picking up, and this gives our Link the ability of flight that he wouldn't normally have unless he has the paraglider from Breath of the Wild or Tears of the Kingdom. Spoiler, we're probably grabbing that later. Twilight Princess allows our hero to grab 2 of my favorite items across all of Zelda. The Double Claw Shot is an upgraded version of the Claw or Hook Shot, but having 2 instead of 1 is extremely useful, allowing Link to traverse certain areas easier and allowing him to attack enemies while clinging to a wall or ceiling. The other item that I would like to highlight is the Gale Boomerang. Much like many other boomerangs throughout the series, it allows Link to grab items from a distance and attack and stun enemies. But it does one other thing that no other item in the series has allowed Link to do ever: skip cutscenes. Without getting too in depth, if Link in Twilight Princess does a long jump after throwing a Gale boomerang out, he does an extremely long jump, allowing him to skip over triggers in front of doors and archways that force the player into cutscenes. For more information, watch this video from Linkus. I think it's great. It's a super awesome watch. Phantom Hourglass and Spirit Tracks are both games introduced on the DS, and honestly, these games probably have the least versatility in item count and nostalgia for me personally. Very quickly, through our journey in Phantom Hourglass, our hero is picking up essentially just bombs and a grappling hook, allowing for more damage and movement options, and in Spirit Tracks, we're picking up some extremely useful items. The first being the Bow of Light, which will help against any form of Ganondorf, and the other item that we will be grabbing is a Sand Wand, a simple item that can raise sand around Link or opponents. This allows Link to always have high ground on enemies, or even to trap enemies within the sand itself. And I can definitely see an enemy type where Link needs to use the Sand Wand in order to capture an enemy in place to get behind them and hit a weak spot on their back. It's very on the nose for Zelda. Just a few games left, so let's knock these out. Following our DS era, we move over to the Wii and Wii U as our hero enters a world of Skyloft and Skyward Sword. What these games lack in fanbase enjoyment, it makes up for in art style and unique items, and what we're picking up is a spicy weapon that not everyone will look at the same, and some nice fashion accessories. The whip is just like it sounds, a whip, allowing Link to attack with decent damage from mid-range, grab items from a distance, hit switches, and swing. And now, Link reveals himself to the Paris Fashion Week event to show off his new Fire Shield earrings. Not only are they fashionable, but they're also functional, allowing our hero to be protected from hot areas, much like the Goron tunic from Ocarina of Time. Released in 2013, Link Between Worlds is the spiritual successor to A Link to the Past, and not only does it expand on the beauty that A Link to the Past had to offer, but it also expands on the item set as well. Of course, there are quite a few overlapping items, including the ones that we'll be picking up today, the first of which being the Super Net. The Super Net is a bug net that not only allows Link to have fun frolicking, but can also deflect deadly magic attacks from boss level enemies. And finally, after visiting 15 different worlds, our hero is finally picking up the legendary Hylian Shield. If you are familiar with the Zelda franchise, then there isn't much to say, as you'll already be familiar with the shield's iconic pattern and durability, being able to block nearly any hit from enemies, falling short only against enemies when reflecting beams of magic or light is required. Triforce Heroes is a game akin to Four Swords, sporting multiple links, but the item set in my opinion is a lot more interesting. Very quickly in this world, our hero is going to be picking up the Fire Gloves and the Water Rod. Just like the name suggests, while wearing the Fire Gloves, Link is able to create a fireball that can either be thrown forward or held in front of him as a shield. The fireball can also ricochet off of walls and bounce around the room Link is in. Firstly, the Water Rod allows Link to spout pillars of water, even if there isn't naturally water present, to create platforms or stun enemies. Both of these items add to our hero's offense and defense stats almost evenly, with how much versatility these weapons offer. And that finally leads us to where we all are in our journeys of this amazing series: Breath of the Wild and Tears of the Kingdom. Now, obviously compared to its predecessors, both of these games are massive to say the least. Both games boasting hundreds of individual items, from crafting materials to weapons to various types of foods. Hell, Tears of the Kingdom took the insane amount of items that you could potentially have up to 11 out of 10, after introducing the ability to fuse items to your gear in order to cause individual effects like a ruby causing fireballs to come out of your equipment. With this insane variety of items, I would actually like to condense our scope down to more of the key items that these games have to offer rather than the most insane combinations. In Breath of the Wild, I think the paraglider is one of the most important items to grab, as it will give the ability to travel long distances fairly quickly. Even though we already have the Rocks Cape, this will give us the ability to travel without using any magic if we're able to reach high points on the map. Secondly, and finally, our hero will be grabbing none other than the Master Sword. I feel it's fair for our hero to have 3 swords to be able to work with throughout the games, since the newer games have conditioned us to use multiple weapons, and the older ones often had Link owning multiple swords, such as the Hero of Time having 3 different swords in both of his games. While in the newer games the Master Sword tends to lose energy after being used for a while, I think it would be fair for the Master Sword to be the most powerful against any of the main story bosses once acquired. Heading over to Tears of the Kingdom, Link is once again going to be trying on several different outfits, as the first things we'll be picking up is the Glide Armor. Now this beautiful item allows Link to dive straight down from high places at insane speed, but if fully upgraded, completely prevents fall damage, which is insanely useful in games like this. When's the last time that you played a Zelda game where you didn't fall and take some fall damage, or potentially fell off a cliff and died? And the last item that our hero is going to be grabbing is another extremely useful item, the Froggy Armor. I don't think that Zelda is going to be turning away from open world games anytime soon. And if that's the case, then we as the player are going to be spending a ton of time climbing up and down mountains all across the land. And while we're traveling across the land, the weather will inevitably change, and we'll be caught climbing a mountainside that is pretty important, only to slip because of the rain. Well, thanks to the Froggy Armor, you don't have to worry about that. Now you can make your way to your destination in a Skyrim-esque fashion without having to worry about falling down and losing your progress because of some stupid rain. So, now that we've explored the various worlds that The Legend of Zelda has to offer and taken a few items from each of these worlds to bolster our hero's strength, what does he look like? How powerful is he? Well, simply put, he's the strongest Link to ever exist within the franchise. With several options of moving around the battlefield, several forms of invulnerability, various extremely powerful swords, and powerful magic rivaling some of the strongest bosses throughout the franchise, our Hero of the Multiverse not only would be able to handle any version of Ganondorf, but I think he could take on several of them at once. With the Fierce Deity Mask, Link becomes several times more powerful, and with the Force Sword he can split himself into multiple bodies, effectively using the Shadow Clone Jutsu. So with that, maybe it's better Nintendo doesn't head down this direction. I mean, after all, if we're able to cherry pick all the individual items that we want, the game probably wouldn't be very fun, now would it? Unless they would introduce a difficulty slider, much like one of these games here.